The image before the viewer shows General Douglas MacArthur stepping into the waters off Red Beach in Leyte. Beside him wade his officers and soldiers, their uniforms soaked by the tide as they move toward Philippine soil. Behind them, the landing craft lingers with its ramp open, and farther beyond, the silhouettes of American ships fill the horizon. This single moment, captured on October 20, 1944, became one of the most recognized scenes of the Pacific War, MacArthur returning to the Philippines as he had promised. For Filipinos, the meaning of that image stretched far deeper than the photograph captured. Across the islands, they had endured more than 2 years of occupation. Families had been torn apart by fear, hunger, and strict military rule. Towns had burned. Young men had disappeared or taken to the mountains to join the guerrillas. Yet through all of it, many held onto the words MacArthur had spoken when forced to leave Corregidor in 1942, "I shall return." Long before the Leyte landings, that promise moved quietly through villages and resistance networks. Filipino guerrillas, scattered across Luzon, the Visayas, and Mindanao, kept watch over enemy movements and protected civilians when possible. They carried outdated rifles, homemade weapons, and sometimes nothing but the will to resist. Still, they sent reports through secret couriers and hidden radios, believing that one day the promise would be fulfilled. As the American fleet approached Leyte Gulf, the news spread swiftly. Fishermen saw the vast armada first, their boats dwarfed by the great ships moving through the water. Messengers took word inland to farmers, teachers, and families who had almost forgotten what hope felt like. When the bombardment began, the distant thunder of naval guns signaled that the long-awaited moment had arrived. And then, on that afternoon, MacArthur stepped into the surf. Filipinos who witnessed the landing saw more than a military operation. Many saw the return of a commander who had not abandoned them, a figure whose departure in 1942 had been a painful symbol of the island's fall. Now, with officers like General Carlos P. Romulo beside him, MacArthur waded onto Leyte, marking the beginning of the campaign to liberate the archipelago. As he moved toward shore, Filipino soldiers and civilians who had been hiding nearby watched with a mixture of disbelief and relief. Some had lost fathers in Bataan. Others had fled burning towns. Many had fought as guerrillas, waiting for the chance to rise openly once more. The sight of the return, real, undeniable, filled them with renewed strength. When MacArthur delivered his message from the Leyte capital, Filipinos listened from every corner of the islands. Some gathered around concealed radios, barely daring to breathe. Others heard the news from neighbors who passed it along hushed and urgent. Everywhere, resistance forces intensified their operations. In northern Luzon, guerrilla units guided American submarines through secret drop points. On Panay, fighters secured mountain strongholds. On Mindanao, organized units prepared to assist the coming landings. The information they had collected over years, enemy locations, supply routes, troop movements, now served a decisive purpose. The return marked the turning of the tide. Yet liberation would not come swiftly. Fierce battles still awaited Leyte, Mindoro, Lingayen, Manila, and countless towns caught in the path of war. But the image of MacArthur's landing spread quickly, often described by word of mouth long before copies of the photograph reached the islands. It reminded Filipinos that they were no longer fighting alone. Help had arrived. The campaign to reclaim their homeland had begun. On that day, as the waves rolled over the boots of soldiers stepping onto Leyte's shores, Filipinos saw the fulfillment of a promise carried through years of struggle. The return of MacArthur, wet, determined, surrounded by men who had shared exile and battle, became a moment forever etched in the nation's wartime memory. The image preserved it, but the hearts of the Filipino people lived it.